They retreat before fire.
We've got to try something.
Flame guns, to the control complex on the double.
The Time Tunnel wasn't just another Irwin Allen sci-fi show. It was the most expensive series on American television in 1966, aired one day after Star Trek debuted, and was canceled before anyone brought the heroes home. Created by Irwin Allen and starring James Darren, Robert Colbert, and Lee Merriweather, it ran 30 episodes and never got a second season. Here are 16 facts you never knew. 16. The ending that exists but was never shown. The series ends the only way it could, with Tony and Doug tumbling helplessly into another time period, destination unknown, no closer to home than when they started. 30 episodes, no resolution. Two men permanently lost in time, but here's what nobody talks about. That ending was never an accident. Irwin Allen had already filmed the other version when he produced the pilot in 1966, and spending 4 times what any network expected for a color hour-long drama. He shot a complete alternate conclusion where Tony and Doug successfully return home. His logic was cold and practical. If ABC rejected the series, he'd release the pilot as a theatrical film. With the homecoming ending intact, ABC bought it, the ending was shelved. And when the show was abruptly canceled in 1967, despite solid ratings with over 600,000 viewers, signing unsolicited protest petitions, no broadcast episode was ever filmed to bring them back. The homecoming ending already existed, it just never aired. Tony and Doug are still out there. 15. It was Irwin Allen's favorite show he ever made. Irwin Allen created Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Lost in Space, Land of the Giants, and The Time Tunnel. Of all of them, he called The Time Tunnel his personal favorite, a rare admission from a producer who treated most of his productions primarily as commercial machinery. The show combined historical drama, science fiction, and genuine human stakes in a way his other series never quite managed. It asked its audience to care about history, not just spectacle. Allen later described it as the most ambitious work of his television career. The ratings disagreed. It lasted 1 season. He never stopped believing it deserved more. 14. The set occupied 2 full sound stages and cost more than any show on TV. The Time Tunnel's Project TikTok Complex was built across 2 complete sound stages at 20th Century Fox, an enormous physical footprint for a television production in 1966. The construction costs made it the single most expensive regular set on American television during the entire 1966 to 67 broadcast season. The tunnel itself, a spiral of alternating black and white rings receding into apparent infinity, and became one of television's most recognizable visual images almost immediately. It was built once and used in every single episode without modification. The same 2 stages, the same rotating rings, the same control banks, for all 30 episodes week after week until ABC canceled the show and the sets were dismantled. 13. It was loosely based on a novel by the same author who later novelized it. The Time Tunnel concept drew loosely from a 1964 novel of the same name by Murray Leinster, the prolific science fiction writer who produced over 1,500 stories and articles across his career. Irwin Allen never officially acknowledged the connection, presenting the series as an entirely original creation. Then Leinster was hired to write the official novelization of the television series, published by Pyramid Books in January 1967. The same author, whose earlier book may have inspired the show, was commissioned to adapt the show back into prose. He went on to produce 2 additional novelizations of Allen's subsequent Land of the Giants series. The circle closed quietly with nobody drawing public attention to how it had opened. 12. It premiered one day. After Star Trek debuted on NBC on September 8, 1966, The Time Tunnel debuted on ABC on September 9th, one day later. Both shows launched their opening episodes within 24 hours of each other on competing networks targeting the same science fiction audience with completely different philosophies about what the genre could do. The Time Tunnel was scheduled after the Green Hornet on Friday nights, a structurally difficult position since the Green Hornet was 30 minutes long, leaving the show starting mid-hour against 60-minute offerings on other networks. It held its own against Hogan's Heroes and The Man from UNCLE, competing for the same viewers. Star Trek survived its premiere and ran 3 seasons. The Time Tunnel ran 1. 11. James Darren took the role to escape being a teen idol. James Darren came to the Time Tunnel carrying a reputation he desperately wanted to leave behind. He had been a teen heartthrob since the Gidget films and a pop singer with a 1961 top 10 hit, Single Goodbye Cruel World. He later said he hoped the series would finally establish him as a serious adult actor with genuine range, pointing specifically to his dramatic work in the East. Guns of Navarone as proof he could deliver more than beach movies and pop records. The Time Tunnel gave him that platform for exactly 1 season before ABC canceled it. He eventually returned to the Star Trek universe as the lounge singer Vic Fontaine in Deep Space Nine 30 years later. He died in September 2024 at age 88. 10. Lee Merriweather was cast before she became Catwoman. Lee Merriweather joined the Time Tunnel as Dr. Anne McGregor in 1966, and in that same year played Catwoman in the Batman theatrical film, the big screen version of the massively popular ABC series running alongside the Time Tunnel in the same broadcast season. 2 completely different productions were airing on the same network, and the same actress was a key presence in both. Merriweather's Anne McGregor was written as a genuinely competent scientist whose expertise was taken seriously by the male characters around her, an unusual and specific distinction for female characters in 1960s American television science fiction. She was also notably the only regular cast member who ever appeared on screen with both the control room team and the 2 leads simultaneously. 9. The lead actors almost never shared scenes with the regular cast. The structure of the Time Tunnel created one of television's most unusual production realities. James Darren and Robert Colbert, Tony and Doug, spent every episode in location and period sets, jumping between historical eras. Whit Bissell, Lee Merriweather, and John Zaremba. The control room team spent every episode inside the same TikTok complex sets, without exception. The 2 groups almost never physically occupied the same space during filming. Their entire professional relationship across 30 episodes was conducted through reaction shots and parallel editing rather than genuine shared scenes. A show about 2 people isolated from home was made by a cast that was, in production terms, equally isolated from each other. 8. Scripts were written around available stock footage. Irwin Allen had access to 20th Century Fox's enormous archive of historical footage accumulated from decades of studio productions. Epic battles, period disasters, crowd scenes that would have cost millions to recreate. His writer's room operated in reverse from conventional television development. Rather than writing scripts and then finding footage to match, Allen's team reviewed available archive material first and built episodes around what already existed in the library. A Columbus episode was scripted, developed, and then canceled when a previous production had depleted the budget and left insufficient money to supplement the archive material with new filming. Story proposals regularly included notes on which specific Fox films contained footage usable in each scene. The history came second, the footage came first. 7. The project was set to cost more than the U.S. space program. The in-universe premise of the Time Tunnel established Project TikTok's total cost as $7.5 billion, equivalent to roughly $68 billion in today's money. The show explicitly noted this figure was approaching the cost of the entire American space program and showed no signs of producing results. A senator arrives in the pilot specifically to shut the project down on those grounds, delivering an ultimatum that forces Tony to jump into the tunnel unsanctioned just to prove the machine functions. A weekly science fiction adventure show opened its entire premise on a government budget dispute and asked audiences to root for scientists burning through NASA-scale resources on technology they couldn't control. In 1966, that argument landed. The show never resolved whether the investment was justified. 6. Australia broadcast it with comedic subtitles. When the Time Tunnel was sold to Australian television in the 1960s, the network made a creative decision that Irwin Allen never sanctioned and almost certainly never forgave. Rather than broadcasting the show straight, they added comedic subtitles throughout, written commentary running beneath the action, treating the series as unintentional humor rather than serious science fiction entertainment, a production that Allen publicly considered his finest television work, was repackaged for an entire country as something audiences were invited to laugh at rather than with. The subtitles were entirely unauthorized. Australian viewers experienced a fundamentally different version of the show than its American audience. The tunnel looked identical. The tone had been completely dismantled. Allen never publicly commented on it. 5. Quantum Leap and Sliders both owe it a direct debt. The time tunnel's structural premise, two people displaced through time, unable to return home, forced to experience history from inside it while a fixed support team watches helplessly, is the direct architectural ancestor of both Quantum Leap and Sliders. Both shows reproduced the core mechanics almost exactly. Protagonists bounced between eras without control, a base team observing from a stationary location, and weekly adventures with no permanent resolution in sight. Neither production officially credited the time tunnel as a source. The structural parallel is too specific to be coincidental. Allen built the format once in 1966. It was rebuilt twice in subsequent decades by different producers at different networks, presented each time as an original concept. The tunnel had been there first. 4 TV films were assembled from episodes in 1982. In 1982, 15 years after cancellation, 5 feature-length television films were assembled from pairs of existing time tunnel episodes and distributed for broadcast. Each film combined 2 original episodes with introductory material drawn from the opening pilot, repackaged as a standalone movie with enough connective tissue to feel cohesive to new viewers. The films were distributed internationally and kept the series visible in markets where the original run had aired nearly 2 decades earlier. It was a standard Irwin Allen commercial strategies, extracting additional revenue from existing production investment without spending new money. The show that had ended without resolution was re-edited into a format that gave at least some adventure arcs a beginning, middle, and end. It was the closest Tony and Doug ever got to going home. 3. The show was canceled before Tony and Doug got home. When ABC canceled the time tunnel in the summer of 1967, no resolution episode had been written, scheduled, or filmed. Tony and Doug were still lost in time, still bouncing between eras, still being monitored by a control room team that couldn't bring them back. The production had not prepared a finale because Allen had genuinely expected renewal and had kept the premise deliberately open-ended. The cancellation arrived without warning and left the show's 2 protagonists permanently stranded without explanation or closure. Decades later, documentation emerged, confirming that a planned resolution existed in outline, a sequence in which Tony and Doug finally returned home. It was never produced. The tunnel kept running. Nobody came home. That is still the ending. 2. A 2002 revival pilot was made and immediately abandoned in 2002. A new pilot episode of The Time Tunnel was fully produced. New cast, updated visual design, contemporary premise framing. It was completed, screened for network executives, and rejected without a series pickup following. No explanation was given publicly. The revival joined a long list of Irwin Allen properties that attracted development attention decades after their original runs. Lost in Space had received a 1998 theatrical film. Various Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea approaches had been floated, but only the Time Tunnel produced a finished 2002 pilot that was screened and quietly shelved. It remains unbroadcast. The show that ended without its heroes coming home produced a revival that also went nowhere. The pattern held across 35 years. 1. Allen canceled his own favorite show rather than cut the budgets. When ABC offered to renew the Time Tunnel for a second season, a single condition was attached. The budget had to come down substantially. The show's production cost, the most expensive on American television, built across 2 sound stages, relying on extensive location work and a sprawling historical scope, had to be reduced to justify the renewal commitment. Irwin Allen refused. He would not make the show on a reduced budget, would not strip back the ambition that had made it his favorite production, and would not hand ABC a cheaper version of something he believed in completely. He walked away from the renewal rather than compromise it. The show he publicly called his finest work was canceled by his own decision. Tony and Doug stayed lost in time. Allen moved on to Land of the Giants. The tunnel he built on 2 sound stages at 20th Century Fox was dismantled. Some protections cost everything they were meant to protect. And there you have it. 15 weird facts about the Time Tunnel, a show that premiered the day after Star Trek, cost more than any program on television, got turned into comedy in Australia, and was canceled by the man who loved it most rather than let it be cheapened. Which hit hardest? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into the shows that built the world of science fiction television. Until next time.